What's up, YouTubes? I'm going to keep this kind of short. Obviously, it's late, thus the unusual lighting. But topic today is figuring out what are the steps that you are either trying to skip or maybe have already skipped, because we want to avoid what's called a shortcut to a dead end. Okay, because all the time there's going to be plenty of people out there try to offer some sort of secret, and the secret turns out to be the appearance of faster progress, overnight success kind of garbage, and then sure enough, it doesn't stick, doesn't work, doesn't click for you, and you begin to blame yourself when the reality is just somebody else is trying to skip your steps. Can't skip steps. And the steps are oftentimes as simple as the kind of processes and patterns that we learn in a lot of educational situations, even basic public education kind of things like the rough draft, second draft, revision, and final draft process. Just because you're not being graded for those things doesn't mean that you can get away with not doing that stuff, whether it's for programming, design, a business plan, something else entirely. All right, those are still useful steps you can apply to almost anything in your life, and you'll find that sure enough, if you apply it to anything, it's going to come out better. That in something like on math, in terms of showing our work, that same sort of thing applies, and we hear this all the time in terms of when someone shows their art portfolio, someone shows their design portfolio, someone's trying to get in a meeting with an important business person, being able to show their work and talk about what were the steps in their process matters every bit as much in those kind of situations as was the end result any good. Because only by showing your process is your thinking externalized in a way other people can discuss, debate, kind of like see your approach to, recognize that you can do it repeatedly, that you didn't just randomly just luck out into the first thing that came out of you. And the same thing happens all the time where we see someone's game comes out of them in exactly the format they first thought of it. They didn't have any process to it, didn't have any revisions, didn't have any feedback, didn't have any iteration, didn't have a second draft, didn't have a final draft to it. And you can tell, and they can tell, they're unhappy with the result. But instead of seeing that the problems that they're skipping steps, the problem that they'll see is, I'm not good at this, that my output is bad. Everyone's output is bad when it first comes out. Right? There's an old quote, I think it might have been Hemingway perhaps, of like the first draft, everything is, let's say, garbage. He might have used a different word. And the difference, right, is that experts, masters in the field or whatever, recognize that, okay, well, yeah, that's garbage, but I'm going to keep iterating on it. I'm going to keep working on it. I'm going to keep make 5 different versions, figure out which one to go forward on. I'm going to do what I have to do to get past the fact that the first thing out of me isn't any good. And frankly, it shouldn't even be shown to anybody. Sometimes this is the sort of thing, too, where what happens is somebody will get some sort of early success, some sort of recognition, some sort of award, some sort of thing that does well, sells well, gets good ratings, whatever it is, that how we define that. And it's always something different for everybody. I think sometimes we overestimate the value of these things, not realizing that there are infinite opportunities now in the world for people to earn some sort of sign that they have done good. And then they stop, right? Because they feel like they learned enough, like they know enough, like they don't have to keep growing and keep changing. But sure enough, the game industry is the kind of field, and I think anymore, probably most things in 2017, almost any field. Doesn't matter if you're in the book publishing industry, doesn't matter if you are a marketing person, doesn't matter if you are, you name it. I mean, heck, the grocery stores are getting disrupted right now, right? No matter what industry you're working in, recognizing that it's going to involve continually learning, continually changing your approach, continually adding to what you know. That's part of why I bring in all the podcast speakers for Game Keto community. Part of why I bring in all the guest speakers for Game Keto Club is because it helps keep my thumb on a wider variety of what's going on. I'm eager to learn from those people too, right? I'm adding those stories to mine for things I can help people with. But what happens, though, is when we try to skip those steps, we get stuck because we lose track of the steps that we took to get there. And occasionally got to look backwards and say, okay, did I take a shortcut to a dead end? Right, to go back to the opening. And if so, maybe I got to backtrack a little bit. Humble myself to say, I could use some additional practice. I could use some back to fundamentals. I could use some training. I could use some support. Could use some teammates, whatever it might be. If the small step is all you can take, if you're in a case where you don't have a lot of time, you've got the full-time job, you're a full-time student, maybe you've got a family you're responsible for, whatever the situations might be, where you feel like you don't have a whole lot of time to work with, however much time you have to work with, I don't know how else to phrase it, that's the amount of time you have to work with, right? And the people who chip away at it correctly, following steps, step by step, consistently, have way more progress to show than someone who's not doing that, than someone who's trying to just keep skipping right from A to Z, who will never have anything to show because you can't, because that's not how that works. there's a progression there, and it takes time. But along that way, keep chipping away at it, whatever small amount of time you have. If you're following the steps, you're going to get there. Part of the nice thing about recognizing that there are steps to it, that there's a process to it, is on the one hand, like I say, you can't skip them. But if you know what they are, sometimes the steps don't take necessarily as long as you might have assumed. Or they can go faster if you just know the steps and follow the steps, as opposed to if you're just flailing about, hoping to randomly luck out, and like I say, cough out a final looking rough draft. It's not repeatable. It doesn't do you any good if you can only do it once. This is the same thing that happens. Oh God, so many. It's happened. Well, I don't do late night videos, right? Too much on the mind. The same sort of thing that also comes out from people who feel like they've got like one good idea and they hang on to it forever and won't talk to people about it and are afraid to do anything with it because they're not going to do it justice. You need to become a fountain of good ideas. You need to become a nonstop source of things worth doing. You need to be able to act on the things, have evidence you can execute on the stuff. And what begins to happen is the more you can execute, the more you can act on things, the more you can do stuff with your thoughts, you stop being afraid of running out of ideas. You stop being afraid of having one idea ever. Because when you can produce things, you start having all kinds of other ideas based on the kind of stuff you can produce. But what gets you there is steps and process, discipline, consistency, not trying to get right from A to Z. That's it for the day. I want to thank you for tuning in. Hope you're having a great Labor Day weekend if you're in the United States. Wherever you're in the world, hope you're having a great weekend. I'll have another video for y'all tomorrow. Bye for now.